I now yield 5 minutes to a member of the Subcommittee on Terrorism and Illicit Finance, the gentleman from Maine, and my good friend, Mr. Poliquin.
The gentleman from Maine is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I appreciate it. I speak today in rise of support of the rule for H.R. 1638, the Iranian Leadership Asset Transparency Act. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Chairman Hensling also for moving this very important bipartisan piece of legislation through the House Financial Services Committee. And additionally, I want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who supported my bill last year. Unfortunately, it got stuck in the Senate, and we're doing it over again this year in the House. Mr. Speaker, the primary responsibility of every member of Congress is to help keep our families safe, and embedded with that promise is to support and defend our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, moms and dads in Maine and across America are increasingly alarmed by the frequency of terrorist attacks here at home, with another attempted attack 2 days ago in New York City. Mr. Speaker, today there are 1,000 ongoing investigations of terrorist activity by the FBI in all 50 states. And that, Mr. Speaker, is why H.R. 1638 is so important. It is a bill, a common-sense bill, that will help keep our families safe and free. And in doing so, we should never make this a political issue. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Iranian government, is one of the chief sponsors of terrorism and instability throughout the world. Their senior political and military leaders and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, they train, they arm, and they fund terrorist organizations around the world. They become experts at using the internet and social media to radicalize, to recruit, and to direct terrorist attacks around the globe, including here in the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, the Iranian government has American blood on its hands. Now, there are approximately 70 to 80 top political and military leaders in Iran that control about 1/3 of its entire economy. They use their power to corrupt the telecommunications, the construction, and other important industries in that country. A recent investigation by Reuters found that the supreme leader in Iran alone has accumulated tremendous personal wealth through a foundation claiming to help the poor. So while the corruption has grown, the average Iranian citizen earns the equivalent of $15,000 per year.
I yield my friend an extra minute.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional minute.
The citizens of Iran and the people of the world should know how much wealth has been accumulated by these chief sponsors of terrorism and what the money is being used for. Companies across the globe looking to possibly do business with Iran should also understand what they're dealing with before they invest. And that's why my Iranian Leadership Asset Transparency Act is a straightforward, Maine, common-sense bill. It simply, Mr. Speaker, requires the U.S. Treasury Department to collect, to maintain, and to post online the list of these 70 or 80 senior political and military leaders in Iran, their personal assets, and how that money was acquired and what it is being used for. My bill requires the Treasury Department to post this information on their website in English, as well as the 3 major languages that are used and spoken, in Iran: Farsi, Arabic, and Azeri. The information should be available, easily downloaded, and shared by everyone who wants to see this. And, Mr. Speaker, might also add that this information comes from publicly available sources. It is not classified information. Now, I have heard folks, Mr. Speaker, say, well, this is not a good idea to expose the Iranian government's corruption in their funding of terrorism, because if you do, we might not be able to work with these people. Are you kidding me? These are the radicals who regularly chant death to America. It doesn't make sense to hope that they'll abandon their support for terrorism by not shedding light on their corruption. Hope, Mr. Speaker, is not a national security strategy. My bill helps make sure Congress gets its priorities straight when it comes to this issue. Protecting American families here at home and helping to safeguard our troops overseas where they're fighting for our freedom is the right thing to do. So let's use, Mr. Speaker, one click of a computer from any corner of the globe to help expose the illicit activities of the chief sponsor of terrorism in this world. Secrecy and corruption breed more terrorism by governments like those in Iran. Let us stand up, Mr. Speaker, for every peace-loving nation around this world, and let's stand up to protect our families here at home. I greatly appreciate the time, Mr. Speaker, and the consideration, Mr. Chairman. Please vote yes for H.R. 1638, the Iranian Leadership Transparency Act. I yield back my time if, in fact, I have